Return of the Mount Hua Sect. Chapter 279. I am the one who will become the sect leader of Mount Hua. Finally! Wei Soheng clenched his fists as he watched the many people waiting before him. Father, we have finally arrived! Right. It was such a long journey. Wei Li-san, who heard his son's words, took a deep breath. Our sect leader didn't know. If he were participating in the Worldly Mudum competition, they would have sent a letter asking for our participation. We could have left and arrived much earlier with that. The sect leader was busy preparing for the competition though. Isn't that normal? Yes. You are right. Wei Li-san nodded his head. The Worldly Mudum competition. His heart trembled. Although it was called such, the competition was actually much closer to the heavenly famous cultural competition. Only those who are recognized as strong in Gangho and have proved their position in the world would have received their invitation to Shaolin and participate. In other words, being able to participate in this tournament itself meant that the sect was proven to be strong, and for a day to come when Mount Hua will be called to such a place. Wei Li-san's heart kept trembling because of this, and he kept looking at the different people. How much sorrow had he gone through to protect and make the Huayong Gate work? How many people ridiculed him for choosing to follow Mount Hua with them being called a fallen and ruined sect? No, this was good. A time when its existence would be known. Is there such a place? When he thought of the time he had to smile at those who asked, his eyes turned cold. I think the main sect people will go to the top. Soheng. Father. It is good to have expectations, but you shouldn't wish for too much, said Wei Li-san seriously. It is amazing enough to be able to participate here where many prestigious sects compete with their skills. Of course, one day, Mount Hua will come out on top of the world. But right now, there is still a gap between them and those who have ruled the world for far too long. Yes. So no matter what results come, don't get too disappointed. We will be supporting them with all our hearts. I'll keep that in mind. Wei Li-san smiled as he watched his son say that with clenched fists. Wasn't it said that 1,000 miles start with a single step? Mount Hua was still developing at a rapid rate. Higher expectations would only put a burden on them. We cannot keep leaning on the main sect. Our Huayong will have to be able to help Mount Hua regain its glory. Wei Li-san opened his mouth with determination. Let us all go. Yes! His disciple, Yongpyong, followed behind Wei Li-san. Aren't we supposed to greet the elders of the main sect? It is fine. They must all be busy right now. They won't even say anything if we greet them once today's spars are finished. They arrived at the edge of the crowds, but they were so far from the stage that it couldn't be seen well. In particular, the disciples were rather short, so it was difficult for spectators to watch. Let's head in a little bit more. Yes. The disciples of the Huayong Gate broke into the crowd, and a fierce protest broke out. Don't push! These people! How dare you do this after coming late? We are sorry. We just want to head inside a little. Wei Li-san bowed with an awkward expression. A man with a grim face blocked the front. No! Aren't you a martial arts sect? Don't you see all the people who came in early for this view, huh? And you want us to make space for you? I apologize. Apology? Go and die somewhere. I'll tear off your hands. The atmosphere turned sour. Everyone here was well trained, and the cold aura exuding from their bodies made him tremble. So Wei Li-san coughed and said, We arrived so late despite running from our home, and I made a mistake since the children were looking forward to this. I apologize. Who doesn't do that? Which sect are you from? We are the Huayong Gate in Nanyang. a martial arts training gate under Mount Hua. Huayong Gate. I never heard of. The man with the grim face who was speaking went silent and then looked at Wei Li-san with strange eyes. Your sect. It is the Huayong Gate. No, not that, sir. You belong to Mount Hua. Mount Hua? Yes. The Mount Hua bandits. No. Are you talking about Mount Hua, which is participating here? What is with this reaction? And Mount Hua bandits? Wei Li-san looked at the man with confused eyes and nodded. Yes, that is true. The man who was blocking his path turned around and coughed. Ah, you were from Mount Hua. Mount Hua. Wei Li-san frowned at the strange reaction. What is this? This man had been growling like a dog, but was now shaking his shoulders and coughing with a weird expression. I didn't know that Mount Hua had other minor sects. This way, please. I will guide you. The man looked and shouted. These are disciples of Mount Hua. Pave the way. Mount Hua? Young disciples of Mount Hua? Man, such terrifying words. Terrifying. Wei Li-san tilted his head. Everyone around had similar reactions. Even those who met his eyes would immediately turn their heads away. It was like, doesn't this look like how we acted when we came across street thugs in our neighborhood? So why were they looking at the Huayong Gate like that? Just why? Hurry up now. Open the way. Get out of the way. Mount Hua's people, make way. Move to the side. Mount Hua. Wei Li-san was shocked at this absurd thing he was witnessing as the path opened. Just what had happened for this to be their reaction? This way, please. Go ahead, and this is the side of Mount Hua. From Mount Hua? Then stand straight with confidence. Right. Wei Li-san couldn't figure out why they were saying this. Just what has happened here? But he didn't have the time to find out. It was because before he could speak, he heard a loud call. Next, Mount Hua's Chongmyeong. Chongmyeong? Mount Hua and Chongmyeong. When Wei Li-san heard the familiar combination of those two words, which didn't go well together, he turned to the stage. But the roaring crowd obscured his vision in an instant. Whoa! Mount Hua's Divine Dragon! Mount Hua is up! Mount Hua's Divine Dragon is up there! As soon as the name Chongmyeong came, they all began to cheer for him from all sides. What? Mount Hua's Divine Dragon? Disciple Chongmyeong? The reaction was so huge that Wei Li-san was stunned for a moment and he looked around. Even Wei So-heng seemed a bit taken aback, but he lifted his head to look at the stage. He could see someone in black climbing up. It is Disciple Chongmyeong! Of course, it wasn't easy to recognize people by looking at their backs. But this back was saying, I'm so bored, but these people keep calling for me. Is there anyone here who would express such things if not for Chongmyeong? It is a win for Mount Hua's Divine Dragon. In one hit, it will be done in one hit this time too. Their ears were already hurting from all the cheers. On one stage, there was Chongmyeong who had just gone up, and on the other side, there was a spar that had been happening since they had arrived here. And the moment Chongmyeong came up, the mood changed for all. All of the disciples of Huayong looked around with wide eyes, the shock forcing them open. In the future. They didn't know what was happening, but they had to grow up or bring something to stand on. Wasn't this a spar with Chongmyeong, who was said to be the most likely to become the best warrior? If they could not see this man's performance, then there was no use coming here. Chongmyeong's appearance made the crowd stand up with heated cheers, making Wei So-heng, the taller disciple, lift up the shorter ones. Wei So-heng, standing up, admired Chongmyeong. Disciple Chongmyeong. He thought Chongmyung would be strong, but he didn't think so many cheers would come for him. Even Wei So-heng, who admitted to not having any deep connection with Chongmyung, felt his heart fill up with pride. I believe in you. He looked at Chongmyung as if possessed, and Wei Li-san, who didn't notice that his son was being stained by a ghost, smiled brightly. Mount Hua is a sect which is so well received. He felt tears stinging his eyes, but strangely, the cheers began to change. Break their heads! So what if they're a 9th grade sect? Break them and throw them away! At the cheers, Wei Li-san laughed awkwardly. Is this fine? Well, it would work out. Chongmyung looked at the cheers and mumbled. No, I did nothing yet. Whoa! It is Mount Hua's Divine Dragon! Show us something good this time too, Mount Hua's Divine Dragon! Win! Win! Mount Hua will win! Chongmyung's lips trembled a little into a slight smile. It does feel good to be praised. Chongmyung scratched his head with a smile. In order to make a strong impression, one needed to show a blunt side. But if one kept getting compliments, one might turn sloppy. It's because I grew up without receiving any compliments. You need to do something that deserves praise first, you stupid bastard. Chongmyung had lost his mood. When he was the Plum Blossom Sword Saint, there were hardly any similar competitions held. To be precise, there were no competition held consistently, and no competition ever made sure that his full strength was shown. And when his young period had ended, no competitions were held at all, so he had grown up without any. No, those bastards. Now that I think about it, they were avoiding me on purpose. Well, unlike now, at that time, Chongmyung's skills were widely known, and everyone would avoid sparring with him. Pathetic. Not for your skills, but for your notorious name, you idiot. If you cannot say it to my face, then don't say it. My heart. Shut it. Chongmyung lowered his head with a smile. Well, he would love to see that man once more. If Chongmyung rose to the top, maybe the clouds would be pushed out of the way for that man to see how this competition went. So, I need to give good results. Chongmyung took a deep breath. Thinking about it, it felt sad. At an age when young people could be seen joking around and applauding others, he was in the midst of them. Normally, he would be where the sect leaders were sitting right now. No, if he was in his actual body and had lived this long, he would be kneeling on the ground and making the others wash his shoes. But again, he was in a situation where they were smiling down at him. This is why they say life was unknowable. Chongmyung shook his head and looked at his opponent. Jinsong was it? A disciple of Wudang. A disciple of the Wudang sect who was known to be skilled. Among them, this child was known to be one of the top 20 candidates for the strongest disciple of this competition. So what to do when facing him? Be fair. Huh? Why is he... Chongmyung narrowed his eyes. Jinsong, who was against him, was shivering in a cold sweat. Tilting at the strangeness surrounding him, he asked, You? Chongmyung's face darkened, and the guy began to step back with more sweat. Are you sick? No. Why are you talking like that? You seem sick. No, I'm really fine. Of course, Jinsong wasn't fine. Well, he was the opponent of Chongmyung. How can I defeat that monster? That monster who beat my Mujin Sasuk? And who was Mujin Sasuk? Elder Hall Sanja also said that for a short time, that monster had played with him. Mujin Sasuk was called the best among the first-class disciples and was on a path to becoming an elder. If Jinsong had competed with Mujin, he would have had his legs broken within 3 seconds. So how could he deal with this monster who had defeated Mujin? If there weren't many eyes on him, he would have vanished. That monster! Seeing Jin-sung act so terrified, Jong-myung smiled. Are you really fine? You look sick. It's fine. It's fine. People get nervous. Ah, right. Yes, it's true. You seem to have eyes that can show you the truth in people. Why don't you just back out? No, I will try. Really? Yes. For sure? Yes? Jong-myung licked his lips and pulled his sword out. Well, we need to bring our swords out to know the other person, right? I will praise your spirit for coming against me despite knowing that you cannot compete. But from my point of view, I need to move to end this, right? Do you really want to go through with this? Come on. I will deal with you with sincerity for this. So let's have a proper fight. Jong-myung's smile was reflected in the twitching eyes of Jin-sung. Let's just surrender. I need to make sure survival is the priority.